Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our Reacher Season 2, Episode 7 reaction and review. We are now really building towards that finale. It is the very next episode after this. Did Episode 7 really set the stage, at least in terms of action? I guess the answer is yes.
Oh, there was action. There was a lot of action. I mean, I expect that from this show, and it really delivered in this episode as far as action. But going into this episode and out of this episode, I gotta say, I'm coming over to Team Matt here
Oh,
on the Dixon theory. Like, I thought that O'Donnell was the one who was dirty, and he still might be. But this episode started to really give a little more footing for me where I'm like, maybe Dixon. I know you jumped off your
I
own
did.
wagon, but like I'm coming onto the wagon with you. I'll pull you back up
Okay, it's
because
good.
I there was some smoke around her in this episode. And you guys let us know in the comments as well. Do you think that Dixon is dirty, that she is in there betraying the team? Or do you think that it's O'Donnell or nobody? Because
Yeah,
it's not Neely. Let's just
no.
throw that off the board.
This show may do many things to us. I do not think they are going to stab us in the heart when it comes to Neely. Like, that's completely off the
No.
table at this point. Like, there's certainly smoke around Dixon. And yes, I did originally bail on my own theory. I will gladly climb back up here a little bit with your help. But I think there's some good mystery stuff, but I will just say it from the start here. I wish that this episode really built even more when it comes to like a story perspective and really setting the emotional stakes for a lot of these characters and everything with AM. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on with this season, but it feels like they basically made it so that this finale needs to be like an hour and a half to prevent themselves from rushing. I think there's a little bit of a pacing issue going on here, but the action, it's Reacher. Like, what else do you possibly want from that?
I was expecting a lot more AM in this episode, to be honest.
Yeah.
We talked a bit about that in the last review. I thought there was going to be a lot of him in this episode and then even more for the finale. And maybe he'll be around more in the finale, but he was not in this episode barely
Yeah.
at all. Like, it was such a quick little scene with him where I was like, wow, that's all we're getting, him on the back of the truck. Okay, cool.
Well, we're going to get so much more into that. But before we do, hit that subscribe button for more coverage of Reacher as we get set for the finale. Also, very busy week here. Earlier this week, we tackled the new Apple TV Plus show, Criminal Record, with Peter Capaldi, Chris Jumbo. Great. Check that out this weekend. We have the arrival of Monsieur Spade as well
Mhm.
as True Detective Season 4. We don't want you guys to miss that.
Absolutely. Okay, let's just get into Dixon right
Okay.
away because there was a lot of smoke on her in this episode, starting with what was going on with O'Donnell at the car with, the young daughter where he was like fixing the baseball cap and being like, "Okay, we're going to get you to somewhere really safe." Like everything went really sideways with Langston. Really sorry about that. We're going to get you somewhere safe.
Yeah.
And Dixon is the person who has a place for them to stay conveniently where it's, tucked away. No one's going to know where they are. I'm like, okay, that's interesting that it's going to be her. But that particular scene where he's fixing the baseball cap, she's kind of standing to the side, almost like, let's get on with it. Like,
Mhm.
oh my goodness, like she was kind of irritated by it. By the end of that scene, she kind of warmed up a little bit in a way where when she offered him an out, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Because if she cares about him at all, and she's just kind of like, you know what? This guy's got kids, a wife. Like, I know everybody, in the group is all getting killed off, but maybe I'll find a way to let this one slide for him and be like, hey, do you want to get out of this? You can get out of this. The rest of us can handle this. I'm giving you an out. And he didn't take it. And then what happens at the end of this episode? He's taken. And so is she. And when we had this whole phone call where Langston was like, yeah, I've got your two people. I figured out where you guys were. I was like, how'd you figure out where they were? Did Dixon call you? Because when we actually saw them at the end, it was like O'Donnell was really taking it. He was
Yeah.
taking a beating, and then all of a sudden the guy pulls out this tiny little pocket knife that was on O'Donnell and stabs Dixon in the arm. And I was like, okay, this is for show. This doesn't feel real. Like, he's really getting it. We've seen other members of this squad, like, really, really get it. Dead, all kinds of awful things. And then all Dixon gets is boop. I was like, stop. This is nothing. Like, make a show or don't.
Okay, it's complicated because I went through a couple of different emotions here. Like, one thought that I had was, okay, does Reacher as a show just not want to show, a female character be put in like an extremely terrible way? But at the same
It's
time,
possible.
though, what you say makes a lot of sense. And like the reason why I was initially suspicious of Dixon in the first place is just because she clearly has an emotional history with Reacher. It's something that she can access and kind of influence him in a way that maybe other people can't. She was also really undercover with something before
Hmm.
we went into all of this. And so clearly she is good at taking on different personas. She's very capable of lying and doing whatever she needs to do in order to get the job done. Like
Yeah.
the part of me that just wants to imagine some sort of happy ending, as far as you can say that in the world of Reacher for the 1/10 goes, is just that they are all on the same page, really working to make it through all this together. That, we saw Dixon really just looking out for O'Donnell and his status as a family man and all of that sort of thing. And like, that part of me still exists, but at the same time, this is a show that does have a lot of dark twists, that does do a lot of
Hmm.
things that are an element of surprise. Like the
Hmm.
only the only real pushback that I have in my head at this point to, the theory that I originally jumped on at the start of the season is just that I felt for the longest time that whether it be Dixon, whether
Hmm.
it be, Donald that you've brought up, like no matter who a potential sort of mole in the operation could be, we would need to know that in episode 7, because otherwise you are going to be like, okay, in the finale, you're going to reveal a traitor to the cause. You're going to
Hmm.
have a Langston showdown. You're going to have an
Yeah.
AM showdown. You're going to
Yeah.
have some sort of end game. You're going to have time to have Reacher eat another Clark bar. It's like there's not enough time, in my opinion, to deal with all of this unless you just don't do a good job with the finale and things feel really, really rushed. So that's the biggest resistance I have to, this whole idea at this point.
I think the thing with Reacher is that, especially with the finales, I mean, you guys remember the finale from season 1. It was
Yeah.
just packed with action and story and reveals. Like, they go hard on their finales, like big, huge,
Yeah.
hard. So it just feels like if they can find a way to pack it all in this finale, it's either going to be really, really good, or it's going to be really rushed, and it's
Yeah.
going to feel like it wasn't long enough. I already feel like this season wasn't long enough. Like, 8 episodes? Stop. Where's my extra 2 episodes? This isn't long enough. But I think maybe we've put like a lot of thought into AM, who just hasn't really had much of a role,
Mhm.
that maybe his part of this is just not going to be that exciting at the end, that he's not really the ultimate bad guy. And it really is just Langston. I just thought that Langston was like one step for Reacher, and that he was going to get taken out last episode or this episode, and he hasn't. And that AM was going to be like the top dog, that this sort of mysterious, ghost that he's never been able to really see, get close to, anything. And then he finally has the first confrontation with him, which will also be the last, kind of thing, right? But they just haven't built him up enough.
I feel like, and this is a bizarre tinfoil hat theory for a
Hmm.
guy who
Hmm.
hasn't read the books and may be very well wrong about this, but my feeling is just that the only way the AM story is going to feel completely satisfying at this point is if this season ends and he's still out there. That maybe we have a showdown between him and Reacher, but AM gets away because we haven't had enough screen time for the two of them together. We haven't had enough screen time with AM and really anyone. I know each season of Reacher is its own thing, and they're
Hmm.
all based on different stories and all of that. I get that, and I'm just hoping that there is a character other than Reacher and somebody like Neely who can come back down the road, because then at least it doesn't feel like they're trying to pay off like all of these different things in one episode, it does introduce the possibility again of, okay, you can throw a mole twist out there and it can work. I do agree with you wholeheartedly, though, about the idea that this season is way too short. Like, Amazon, you guys have more money than some countries produce in a year. You cannot do more than 8 episodes, or at the very least, like 43 minutes of this show. Sure, I understand blowing things up is probably expensive, but
Yeah, I'm sure
once
it is.
again, you guys have a lot of money. I know Alan Ritchson is kind of a rising star because of this
Mhm.
show, but you also, and I'm just going to throw Tom Cruise out there because I know he was in the movies, but it's not like you have a Tom Cruise on this show that is basically like, I want $1 billion for being on this show. You guys can find a way to make it work.
Absolutely. I know that they had a bit of a bigger cast
Mhm.
here this season with more people working with him and more people on the opposite side of them. But I mean, they're going to be they're not going into next season still having Dixon and O'Donnell around. I just don't think that that's what's going to be happening. Either
Yeah.
O'Donnell is dirty and he's going to end up dead or in jail, or that's going to happen to Dixon. They have to find a way to wrap up the Dixon thing. And I think they're not going to want to just do the exact same thing as they did with Roscoe, where it was like, hey, it was fun. It was good to, meet you and I'll see you never. That kind of thing with Dixon. I think she's either going to end up dead or in jail. And that way, it's a little bit different. This is not a show that's just a rinse and repeat.
Yeah, the biggest appeal to me right now of the whole Dixon is really working with the bad guys idea is that it reinforces everything behaviorally from Reacher that we have seen, where he will come out of this season being like, all right, you see people, this is why I can't get close to people.
Yeah.
It's because they continue to hurt me and disappoint me and betray me. Yeah, sure, Neely, I can trust you, but
Hmm.
you kind of understand me for the way that I am. And I don't think Reacher's really interested in changing by any means. I think he's fine being like this wayward guy who just kind of runs around and solves problems and does his own thing. But I think this would just remind him further of, okay, this is why I'm like this. This is why it's better for me to be untethered. And like that's something that emotionally he can sort of carry with him moving into another season.
Did anybody else find it kind of weird with that phone call with Langston and Reacher where Langston we didn't actually see that he had taken Dixon and O'Donnell. He was just like, "Yeah, I have your guys."
Yeah.
And it was like, "Well, where are they?" Like, it's kind of weird. We didn't see them get picked up. We didn't see them with him. We didn't hear them screaming. We didn't have anything. There was no proof of life. There was like literally nothing. So I was kind of like, is he actually talking about them? Does he actually have them? I was actually expecting at the end of this that one of them was actually just going to be standing beside him, that, they were going to be like, yeah, I sold this out. The reason Langston has this is because I called him and was like, yo, we're at this hotel. Come get us, like make it look good kind of thing. And that maybe that person would then be standing with him being like, yeah, I'm part of this. But I still think that happened. I think one of them called Langston and was like, come get us. We're here. We're getting too close to you. Um, I'm here to give you information, because that definitely has been a theme throughout the season. Like with Russo's boss, it was like, hey, I was getting paid to give information to make sure that Langston knew what was going on if we were getting too close. So why wouldn't one of Reacher's team also be that person, the information person, who's like, yeah, we're getting too close. Come get us. We're at the hotel. Make it look good. Take this little 2-inch blade and stick it in my arm. Pretend like, I'm not part of it, but really I am, Dixon.
I
I'm totally on your bandwagon now.
See, the thing is, I wish they'd done your idea, because that would have been a much better ending for this episode of having just somebody like having her stand right next to Langston, because then we would have been entering this video being like, ah, and like we would have been like really going for it.
I think they're saving this. If this is a reveal, this is my tinfoil hat theory.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
saving it for the finale so that we get everything in that finale because we watched Reacher walking into the compound, by himself, ready to just take it all on. And I think if he had walked in and saw that right away, where like O'Donnell or Dixon's just standing beside Langston being
Yeah.
like, ha 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 ha, ha kind of thing, I think it wouldn't be in the finale. And I think they want the finale to just be like bonkers because they go all out for these finales that
Yeah.
it's like, not only are you dealing with AM and Langston, but somebody's betrayed you and explosions and oh my goodness, like it's just everything all at once.
Let's try to ask a couple of questions here from Langston's point of view. And I know just to let everybody know, this is going to be very hard for Jess and I to try to relate or understand what's going on in Langston's head. As far as I know, you are not a criminal mastermind, and neither am I. So here's our
Not
effort.
that you know of.
That's
I'm just kidding. ...
Now, so the first question is really just, is he really going to take Reacher's word that, okay, Neely's dead? Like, he doesn't have any real evidence. He just has Reacher saying, oh, she's dead. And he's just hoping that this is a bluff that he can sort of play out long enough. Kind of like, one of the things that I sort of thought about when Langston was first like, I have your people, is just like, okay, is this a full bluff? And Reacher will find out later. It's just that if I am Langston, I am scoping out every single like square inch around this compound just to make sure, because yeah, you're gonna take Mr. Extremely Buff Man who is coming in to presumably kill you and your entire team's word that this person is actually gone. So this is a really good test of your criminal aptitude here, Mr. Langston.
Yeah, it is.
Also, Mr. Langston, the other question I have here is that, yes, you might have been tipped off about the location from, whether it is Dixon or Donald or whoever else, but did you also, over time here, have you just like ramped up your tails on these people? Because it's like, if one of these people isn't a mole for whatever reason, and like the 1/10 really is all together, like you have to find a way to justify how you have all the information that you have. And then once again, we're at an issue of runtime here for the finale, because I don't think Robert Patrick is going to stand up on ceremony and be like, let me tell you now about everything that I'm doing.
It's an action show. He may very well do that.
If that happens, I need Reacher to punch him in the face halfway through the monologue, because that's what, every time I see these monologues, it's just like, you're just going to let him talk? Just go up there and be like, ugh.
The thing is like, if he's got tails on them and that's how he figured out what motel they're at and all of that, then he would already know that Neely's not dead. There would be a tail on Reacher 100%.
So it's, all of this is just sort of shaping up to be a pretty complicated finale.
Yeah.
And I feel reasonably confident that a lot of things are going to be resolved, except for the AM thing, just because I have a hard time buying right now, and this, I guess it's my tinfoil hat thing, is this like, is AM really just going to be satisfied with everything with New Age and Little Wing and like this stuff that's been established this season? Because it feels like, yes, we know with New Age, a lot of the end goal here is just money and power, but from what we've seen from AM, and granted we haven't seen a lot, he's kind of an interesting dude. It doesn't seem like he's motivated necessarily by the same exact sort of things. And that, to me, is what would make him a captivating long-term villain, because we know what Reacher's strength is, literally his strength. But if AM's strength is just sort of mystery and smoke and mirrors and being able to disguise himself, like that's actually a pretty formidable opponent for Reacher, because Reacher ain't disappearing anywhere. Like, you cannot like have him go undercover that often and everybody's not going to recognize the huge dude with all the muscles.
Yeah, I think he would be a really good opponent for Reacher, I think, but because this show is so heavily action based, it's really difficult to have a bad guy who is smoke and mirrors and, the shroud, and you can't really get to him kind of thing, because then there's no, action. And that's why we have Langston, and that's why we sort of have them both together. But could he be alive for the next season? I don't think so, the way that they're trying to put this together. We haven't read the books, and, it sounds like each book is its own thing. I don't know. I haven't read them. But if they want every season to kind of be its own thing, so people can kind of jump in whenever they want to watch the new season, you don't have to have necessarily seen what has happened before that, then AM can't make it.
Well, we're going to see what happens, everybody, in the finale. So buckle up, prepare yourselves. We will either be really hyped or
Yep.
disappointed or somewhere in between. But hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss any of that. Also, thank you to our patrons for your support. We really appreciate that. And we do live streams every week over on that Patreon talking all about Reacher. Check that out, and we will see you guys next time.